governing members that are here, God, we ask that you will allow us to take us to higher heights and deeper depths in you, that everything we do be according to not only what you would have us to do, but the community and the articles associated with this community. We thank you and we magnify your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mary Berry. Here. Jacqueline Williams. And Anita Rivers is present. We have a quorum. We will continue. Any additions, deletions, and or amendments to the agenda? Seeing there is none. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I need to add an addition.
Okay.
I need to add the election info. Also,
Right. We need to regular agendas up here. Correct. Exactly. That's not the agenda. What did you want to add? Vanessa?
election.
Under,
Before the swearing in.
okay, so we'll switch old business from A. A will become B and A will be election.
Madam Mayor, the clerk is informing me that the public hearings for CPA 2023-01 through 2023-04 and Z 2023-01 through Z 2023-04 were not on the website published, or excuse me, not on the agenda published to the website. So just in abundance of caution, I'd like to move those items for public hearings onto the agenda as well.
Okay.
Do that after citizens report. These were advertised. Mr. Stubbs, okay.
Any other additions, deletions, and or amendments? Can I, do you have anything else? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'm Mary Berry. Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second?
Jacqueline, second.
Can I get any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, citizens from the floor. I have Robert Gamsby. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Robert Gamsby, 16370 Camp Ave in White Springs.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
You want me to do that again?
No, you can do that. Oh, you want to repeat it?
Please.
Okay. It's Robert Gamsby. I'm at 16370 Camp Ave, White Springs, Florida. And I just came to express some concerns over, the very least, the handling of the proposed development that is on the agenda for today. I did read through all 8 of the proposals that were on the website, and they are extremely vague as far as what exactly this land will be used for. You have to go into the utilization for the roads and the water, so you can get an idea of what they're putting there. They're looking to put in about 239 apartments, about 195 houses, and then 133,000 square feet of commercial space, with no indication of what kind of apartments these will be, who will be occupying these apartments, what kind of single houses they will be, what kind of commercial space this will be. And we're being expected to make an informed decision on whether or not this is something that we approve as people with absolutely no information. You might as well just say, you know, they have land, they want to use it, what do you guys think? Like, this is not any kind of educated process. And to make a decision with no information, or to only receive the information right now on the spot, right before that decision is made, is extremely irresponsible, especially given the magnitude of this. You are talking about doubling the population of White Springs in one stroke of a pen, and we're given no time to consider this. And even just the way this meeting is set up, we are being asked to voice our concerns before they even come and tell us what we should be concerned about. So how could
If I can help you with that, Mr. Gamsby, there'll be public hearings and you'll be able to speak for or against each thing as the board votes on it. So you'll have another opportunity to speak about this issue.
In reading the proposals, there is sheets in there that are dated to be signed today, saying that there is 30 days before they can implement it. So basically, the stuff that is on the website says opposite of what you're saying. It says that it will be done today, and then we have to object.
As we go through the meeting, as these items are called up, there'll be public hearings, which means as those things are discussed, you'll have an opportunity to come up. Today's meeting, yes.
I understand.
You can finish your thoughts, but you'll have another opportunity to speak for or against each of the items as they're called. Okay?
I've expressed my overarching concern now, and we will be hearing from you as these things come up.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gamsby. Dennis Price.
Dennis Price, 16548 Spring Street, and I'm gonna wait for the presentation to see what questions I do have.
Nicole Williams.
I'm gonna wait.
Ashley Bryant.
Ashley Bryan, 10621 Charter Street, Whitesville, Florida. I'm doing an adult filling for family and friends on June 25th, and I was wondering what rule I need to do to use the outlets for the bathroom at the ballpark.
There is a policy on that, so you'll need to come in and talk with, Cynethia or Audre about that, because there's a form you will have to fill out, you have to pay. If there's gonna be more than 50 people, you have to have armed security. We discussed that in other meetings.
Well,
That's been
if
passed.
I'm not using the ballpark,
But if you wanna use the water, that's part of it.
Okay.
But you're welcome to come in and talk with Audre or Cynethia.
Are we still doing the free one time
That's on the.
during that month?
That's not for that.
That's
It's
not
not.
for that. Beth Daniel.
Hi, I'm Beth Daniel, 16613 Spring Street. I have two questions. First question is regarding the land thing real quick. There's notices everywhere about there's supposed to be a public meeting today at 6 o'clock about the development. What happened to it?
I wasn't informed of that.
I wasn't informed of that either.
It's posted
Who
on,
posted it?
well, I mean, it's like on signs and
The
then.
town
The
didn't
town
post
didn't do
that. It was
that.
never brought to the town to post.
Okay.
So we didn't post it and I didn't know.
Okay.
There was no separate meeting, 6:30.
Okay, but there's, I guess in the documentation also, I read it somewhere today on the site. It may be in the documentation.
Exactly.
And it's also on the back of each one of those agendas.
So that's,
Mr. Gamsby, you can't just jump
There's no public hearing, but we weren't aware. I wasn't aware, and I would think that I would have known that, or somebody would have brought it to my attention,
all right, the second question I have is regarding, what happened to, in a meeting 2 or 3 months ago, there was a discussion around the applicants and the new planning and zoning board. And now everything looks as if the town council is also going to act as a planning and zoning board. How
We
did that
did
happen?
approve for everyone to be on planning and zoning. Planning and zoning is welcome to meet, but there is no there's nobody, we don't have a planner. So with just a board, it still has to come to the council, even if you have a planner. But without having a planner, what sense does it make for a board to meet without a professional planner?
Well, I guess my question would be, as far as looking for community input, that would be by the people who get on that board. And then there's a little bit of separation between government and town, so that you've got input from citizenry. That's, I guess, my.
And we approved the board.
May I interject, Mayor?
Mhm.
I think the people who were on the planning board, they just never did a meeting. That's the only reason. They never did a meeting. So it's on the board to.
It's on the board
Yeah, they need to
come
call
up
a
with a
meeting.
meeting, it's not on the town for the planning and zoning to meet. Each board has their own chairman and so forth, and so they set up their meetings. Mr. Dennis Price, weren't you on planning and zoning before? Can you explain how that was done?
There would be an application come in.
We did all of that, we
And the
passed
planning
that,
and
we
zoning board
approved it.
would set up a meeting, it would, be independent of
Right.
the city council. And they would do all that planning and make sure everybody attended, Brandon, for instance, and Curry. So I guess it's kind of up to them to hold the meeting.
Right.
So, but wouldn't the town council be recommending or guiding any kind of like how you,
No.
okay.
That's a committee that, strictly committee, whoever is on that committee, they set their meetings. They notify the clerk of their meeting so she can post it.
Okay.
And you take your own notes, your own minutes, all of that. You turn them into the town, and, as you want them written, and they'll, post them as it.
And of course, whatever they come up with, they'll have to bring it back to
Right.
the council.
I guess I just expected some kind of notification that says it didn't work. I mean, we don't have enough, because maybe that would, get people kind of geared up, maybe to be a little bit more proactive, but there would have been some kind of statement or, letting the citizenry know that it's not gonna happen.
It's a board, there is a planning and zoning board, all these people that were approved, but it's up to that planning and zoning board to, make their own meetings.
And
Make their own-
Cynethia and I have spoke to most of the members, telling them that same thing past several months.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Tony Grace?
I'm gonna wait on my comments on that proposal deal.
Okay.
I had other issues though. Tony Grace, 16373 Diamond Street, White Springs. I have a concern with the people on the other end of our area here. All hours of the night, up and down the roads on quads, motorcycles, all hours of the night. Some of us get up 5 in the morning, go to work. I understand we don't have a police department in this town, which I don't get. It takes 40 minutes for the sheriffs to come out here. Something's gotta be done. I've already approached them once and told them to stay off the road. We don't want them on the road. That is a road, that is not a street. And what I was told when I moved here, the people on Diamond Street paid you guys to pave that road. It has private access to our houses, is what I was told when I moved here.
Before my time, I don't know.
Okay, that's what I was told by Coach that built this house. He lives across the street from me. I've already told him that it needs to be dealt with, to quit coming down the road and tell your buddies, because if not, I'm gonna have the sheriff out here, and if the sheriff can't rectify it, then we're all gonna rectify it on our own. Whether it be speed bumps, whatever, I don't care. We have no speed limit sign on that street whatsoever, which it should be posted 10 miles an hour. We also have these guys running through our properties, okay?
I
Robert
live right
Renee,
down the road from you,
Okay.
and I hear it all night too. But
There
it's
you
not,
go.
it's not the people that live there, it's guys that live out in the county that are coming into town with that.
well, the long-haired kid lives down there. I followed him home. He rides a gray quad.
He lives in that house, but the one with the long hair, he does not live there.
Okay, well, the one with
He
the-
hang out there a lot.
The one with the long hair that rides a red quad, he lives there. I followed him down there.
Yeah, but that other guy hang with him, so you may have them confused.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I
Something needs to
know
be
it
done.
is.
Okay.
And I've complained,
Okay.
as the mayor, I have called the sheriff's department, I've complained, I have them on video. Do you know what the deputy told me? There is nothing they can do unless they catch them. Well, here's a video, what else do you need? So I'm
Okay,
just
I get
like
it.
you, I get it.
Now, I see him sitting on these roads when I come home from work,
Mhm.
okay? And pulling people over for tickets. I get that. Oh, you can do that. Why can't you station somebody out here to catch them on these quads?
Do you know how many stop signs we have to put up at that corner because they run them over?
Which was my next topic,
Right.
because the poor people live on the corner and mowing their yard.
Right.
That sign is literally falling down and you can't even read stop on it
And
anymore.
then spin all through them people.
Yes, they have. And they drove on the other side of it. Now they drove on my half acre that's vacant, which I'm not gonna tolerate,
I
okay?
understand.
Well, then
Not either.
you hear them doing the roadies out there on the corners.
I hear.
All right.
We've even talked, my husband has said, could you please stop doing it, but you know, disrespectful.
I got you. Well, that's what Coach said, because he was a little punk when he drove off. I
Right.
said, I'm gonna call the sheriff. He said, you want me to dial a number? I said, you don't have to. I know how to dial a number. So either sheriff's gonna take care of it, or we're gonna take him, you know, we're gonna do it ourselves. I mean, if we have to pay for the speed bumps, we'll pay for them. I don't care. But there needs to be a sign on that road posted 10 miles an hour, because people are flying up and down that road, and tractor trailers have no business going down that road.
That's right.
So,
I understand.
those are my concerns right now,
Okay.
okay? And then I'll concern on this.
Thank you, Mr. Crazy. All right, no more citizens from the floor. We'll go into our public hearing, we'll close the meeting and go into a public hearing.
And may I, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So procedurally, the Planning and Zoning Board was not meeting. Under charter, it serves in an advisory capacity to the council. The applicant had filed its application, Mr. Stubbs, several months ago. Is that fair to say? There had been no action on the application. The applicant therefore appealed directly to the council. So the council will be sitting this evening in the capacity of the local planning agency under statute and performing the functions of essentially advising itself as well as adopting resolutions and first readings of ordinances. So these will not go into effect tonight, they'll be first readings. They also have to have review. Procedurally, Mr. Stubbs is representative for the applicant. Mr. Stubbs is with North Florida Professional Services. Mr. Stubbs is going to be sworn, will stay sworn throughout the evening. He will present each one of these 4 packages, and then there'll be a public hearing where anyone can speak for or against the item Mr. Stubbs addresses. We'll go through all 4 of them. At the conclusion of each public hearing, there's a series of 2 resolutions and 2 first reading ordinances that the council will have to address. If you want to speak for or against any of those, please do so as part of the consolidated public hearing. With that, Mr. Stubbs, I ask you to come forward and address the council.
Mr. Foreman, it's not 8, it's 4.
8 what?
It's not 8.
It's 4. 4 different properties. There's a zoning application and a CPA amendment application as to each one.
Okay.
Mr. Stubbs will explain everything to the satisfaction of the board. If you would, when you come forward, please just look at me and I'll swear you very quickly. You'll see how I do, Mr. Stubbs, and just give yourself a second to be sworn in so your testimony will count, okay? Do you swear the testimony you're going to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Brandon Stubbs. I'm the senior planner for North Florida Professional Services, and I'm here representing BBL Management Services on 4 land use and 4 zoning changes. The first, do you need to read the ordinance or anything, the title?
When they consider it, I'd like for you to just explain.
Okay.
If you would
So
take them though.
this is the first step in a long list of processes. So to look at this as the ability for my client to go out there and just develop hundreds of units, this is not that. This is a land use change. This is a basic thing saying, I would like to do some development on this property. In order to do that, I have to go through a step of processes. First is a land use change. If the land use is adopted, zoning change, and then once the land use and zoning is there, then you have to go through all the engineering, the site plan process, the development plan, So there's a lot of steps that have to happen before there's any breaking of ground, any development, and all of that will come back before this commission. So I do want to reiterate that this is what y'all are looking at tonight is not any development rights or approval for development itself. This is just land use and zoning. The first piece that I want to talk about is parcel A. I apologize, the blue did not show as well as I hoped, but it's the triangle piece at the top, that's 6.44 acres. That parcel, the current land use is agriculture. The current zoning is agriculture. The proposed land use is residential high density, which does allow up to 20 units per acre. And the proposed zoning is residential multifamily 2, that's what's proposed. And that allows for up to 15 single family dwellings, or if it's multifamily, up to 20 units per acre. Like I said, the parcel is 6.44 acres. It's located north of White Springs Library, Osceola Street, Stephen Foster Culture State Park, south of US Highway 441 and White Springs Hair Design, east of Southeast 164th Street, Jackson's Pond, and Stephen Foster Drive. It's west of US Highway 41, White Springs City Hall, and a single-family residential subdivision. I'd like to know that this property is what in planning terms is called infill property. So infill property is property that when you have property that's developed all around it, and you have vacant property that's infill. And when you look at proper planning and smart growth, you always want infill development, because you don't want sprawling development. You don't want development way north of 41 or way south where it's not adjacent to existing compact development in urban areas. And so this piece is actually a logical development pattern for the existing development pattern that's already there. It's adjacent to existing uses that are similar as commercial uses to the north, and to the east. There's existing residential uses on all sides. So this is what in planning terms is called infill. The subject property right now does not have any intended proposed use, but what I'd like to talk about is currently under agriculture only allows certain types of uses, and that's typically, agricultural and single family. But the proposed use allows for a more wide range of uses that my client could come in and petition you at a later time to be able to develop once a specific engineering development plan has been developed. And that could be, it could be a single family subdivision, it could be 15 or 20 homes, it could be multifamily, which would consist of this particular development. The maximum number of units that would be permissible would be 128 units. But ultimately, this commission will have to come back and approve anything that my client proposes. I would like to go through the environmental impacts or environmental status. The FEMA flood maps, panel 359D of the Federal Emergency Management, dated August 28, 2018, shows that the subject property does have some flood zones on the subject property. Not on that north piece, but on parcel B. But those areas would be preserved. Obviously, if it's in a flood zone, you can't develop that without extensive permitting. There's no anticipation to develop that would be preserved. The subject property is not located within the area that's considered a stream or sea. So there's no concern related to stream or sea. The subject property is known not to have any materials or minerals that would be useful for mining. There's no historic resources or historic, properties all vacant, there's no historical resources on the property. It's located within a groundwater aquifer recharge area, but if you look at North Florida, everything in North Florida is either high or in a aquifer recharge area. There's very few areas that are not, in fact, the entire town is a highly aquifer recharge area. There's no vegetative communities or anything like that, so there's no like wildlife habitat or rare species or anything like that located on the property. One thing I'd like to mention is that there is a concurrency impact analysis, and I would like to also say that I would like to incorporate my staff report that was submitted and the analysis of the LDRs as part of the record as part of this presentation. And so if you look at concurrency, there's no negative impacts to concurrency as a result of this development. And that concludes my presentation for the first piece. And I'd just like to, remind the commissioners that, this is the first stage. This is just preliminary. This is land use. This isn't a development plan, and you're not giving my client any rights to develop. And when it comes to planning, this is the proper steps. This is the proper staff report, covers everything that a land use amendment should cover, and is consistent with state statute and the town White Springs LDR town plan. If you have any questions, we're going to answer them about the first portion.
Yes, how will this affect our current infrastructure and our current water supply? Have you all, have you given that any thought?
Yes, ma'am. So, the current impacts, now, when we do concurrency for a land use change, we look at the worst case scenario. So what we do is we take the maximum intensity that something could be developed about. And if you look at the water and sewer analysis in my staff report, the proposed development would result in a net increase of 36,042 gallons per day in water. So 36,042 gallons per day.
Is that sewer?
Sewer and water, yes, ma'am. And that's the worst case scenario. $36,042.
And that's day per day.
Correct, per gallons per day.
And on this land use here, you don't have any idea what they plan on developing on this site at this point?
There's no development plan at this point.
I've heard, different talks that there's gonna be assisted living facility, apartments, grocery store, and doctor's office. So none of that's true?
No, ma'am, not on this piece. There's certainly, this is.
On any of it?
They don't have any development plan for any of this.
Okay.
There's, whether or not any of those uses come to fruition, they don't have any potential buyers or any development plans at this time.
Okay, so there's no potential buyers, no potential development plans, and you want the council to make a decision on changing the zoning for everyone in the town of White Springs by having a workshop first.
Well,
Without letting the citizens say what they would like, or what they would, let the citizens make the decision. So you want the three of us to change
The
zoning, and we don't know what's gonna go there. And you would think that would be fair for us, the voice of the citizens, to make an informed decision and decide on ordinances tonight that you have already drafted up and publicized that it was gonna be a public hearing, and we're gonna make that decision tonight without a workshop for the town, for the citizens to decide. We are the voice of the citizens, sir.
I completely understand. I spent 20 years as a local government planner, and I completely understand.
And I'm just appalled that I have a folder full of ordinances, resolutions that I'm supposed to just say yes to, and we don't even know, and haven't even read anything. And that's supposed to be fair to the town, the citizens of White Springs.
This is the process that every land use in the state of Florida goes through, so.
I guess White Springs would be the difference, huh?
If there's something that,
All of it, cause I haven't looked at this, first of all, I need to look at my LDR, I need to look through these resolutions, I need to hear from my citizens, what they want, what their wishes are for that, I mean, just as input, that, I owe that to them.
yes, ma'am, and that's why we typically have these hearings, and this is what the public input process is under state law.
But I feel like you should have come with a proposal or asked for a workshop or something to explain all of this so we could have citizens here to hear it before tonight.
This is how I was told to approach it, so, I mean, I was advised by staff and I was told to prepare this stuff and, submit it for this hearing.
I was told that staff asked you if you should present this to the council first, and you said no.
Yeah, this is the presentation to the council.
Okay.
I'm getting a little confused here because I've done this for 20 years. And
So, just, again, the council's not familiar with the planning and zoning process, and that's perfectly fair and understandable. But there's nothing unusual about the way this is being done.
Well, I'm requesting a workshop.
And that's okay, that's unconventional. So, the way, again, zoning and comp plan amendments, if you think about it, it's a 30,000 foot view of scope. Okay, nothing is really happening at the ground level. The concurrency analysis that's been done, frankly, is in excess of what you usually do. So, zoning will give you a list of permitted uses, a list of prohibited uses, and then a list of what are called special exceptions. And it's just your menu, right? So when you're ag, depending on which category of ag you are, you may have, one residential, or one residence for 20 acres, one residence for 5 acres, it just depends on where you fall. And then in terms of prohibited uses, you can't build apartments in ag, right? So the very first step, if you think you might want to do that kind of development in the future, is you come in and say, well, can I get it rezoned? And so what's going on tonight is the horse way out in front of the cart. Hey, can we get a change in the land use to allow for us to have that menu, right? And then based on that menu, it would be Mr. Stubbs' client's obligation to come back and say, okay, now that I've got the menu, I'd like to build an apartment, or I'd like to build houses, or whatever the case may be. But this is very conventional. Now, I will say this, if the town had a plan, right? What you guys will be doing right now is what every other planning and zoning board does, is you look down at your planner and say, hey, is everything checked out? And that's where I think your concern comes in, and I think it's very valid, because we've talked many, many times, we lack a planner. I'm not a planner, I've made it very abundantly clear to everybody. The issue that you have is the applicant filed an application several months ago, okay? Under state law, they're entitled to their hearing, right? It's like their day in court. They invoked that, and that's what this is. So they run ads in the newspaper and all that kind of stuff. And so again, it's an up or down vote kind of situation, and it can be a down vote, right? You could also table certain things. What I would recommend, in fact, is if you do want to have, community outreach or anything like that, that you would in fact table, because that way he doesn't have to renotice everything. But in terms of the process itself, while it feels objectionable, it's not legally objectionable. And in fact, we need to go through it, because otherwise you could actually create a situation where the applicant could be adverse to the town in a way that would be bad for us. So, does that conclude your presentation in terms of what you intended to present on the first property?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Madam Mayor, what I'd recommend is allow Mr. Stubbs to take a seat, open the public hearing, receive comment. You can call him back up to answer any questions the citizens have. And then we can talk about the action on the 4 items that are under this public hearing.
Okay. Open up the floor to the public hearing from the audience. Mr. Gamsby?
Mr. Gansky, do you swear the testimony you're going to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I'm just gonna ask some questions.
Sure. And if you could just state your name again for the record.
It's Robert Gamsby, 16370 Camp Ave. So I was wondering if rezoning the property increases its market value, and if they are allowed to sell the property and then transfer the new zoning usage to the new owners.
Yeah, zoning runs with the line.
Okay.
So if they sold it, it would continue to be zoned this way.
Okay, and if there are protected wildlife species, alligators or ibis's who live there, then what happens? I mean, so they go, they get it turned commercial, and then they find out there's an alligator nest, and you can't do anything with it. What?
That typically impacts the development orders that come when they put in a site plan. They say, hey, I want to build a 20,000 square foot big box store. There'll be an environmental survey where they'll try to identify are there gopher tortoises or there different animals. That doesn't happen in the zoning and the CPA phase. That happens at the development order phase, which is when they actually show you plans. There'll be surveys.
And, so there's 4 different proposals in front of the board tonight.
Correct.
So each proposal takes as its baseline the current traffic and usage statistics, and then they apply the difference to those current ones. There's no attempt to aggregate the impact that all 4 changes would have, because they're all on the same strip of 41. So you can't say we're gonna build apartment buildings here and it's gonna increase traffic by 1,000 units, and then we're gonna build it here and it'll be 1,000 units, and big box stores 5,000, and then pretend like they're all unrelated, because they won't be.
So when you do concurrency analysis at the development order stage, which is when you say, hey, I want to build 20 duplexes, there'll be a concurrency analysis done then, and it'll involve everything. And when you say, hey, I want to come down and put in a subdivision and this other stuff, there's a concurrency analysis done then to reflect what's actually on the ground. You're right. Looking into a crystal ball and knowing what these 4 properties are going to be, right now is not possible. So you're right, it's not aggregated and it's not treated that way, but that's conventional.
So, as we all know, there's a World War II camp for Germans that's right in that area. Do we know if this property is part of that historic site, or if it's part of that actual camp?
He'll respond to everything.
Okay, well, most of my questions are based around what they actually want to do with it, and since we don't know what they're actually going to do with it, I suppose for now I'm done.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stubbs? Anybody else in the audience have? Come on, Mr. Thompson.
Tony Griggs, 16373 Diamond Street, Place Reese. What I gathered from him speaking, it was kind of like just trying to rush through the process tonight, get it all through and be done with. That's what I gathered through that whole time he was speaking, number 1. Number 2, everybody knows the villages, right?
Yes.
This is how it started out,
Yes.
where it's at now, okay? Number 3, if he's not bringing any employment to this town, or any concessions to this town, or funds to this town, you know, and if it's all gonna be low-income housing, you know what kind of riffraff that brings. Just saying. More crime, more everything. So, then you got the roads. How long are the roads gonna be under construction, you know? Some of us only have one way to get home. We can't do a detour. See what I'm saying? So, yeah, I've got a lot of issues with it. From what I gathered out of this presentation tonight, it's like, let's get in, get it approved. We'll worry about the melee later. So.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? And Mr. Stubbs?
To answer the question about historical resources, there are a list of historical resources listed through the department. Part of the Division of Historical Resources, the master site file, And every government, files their historical resources with that master site file. And that was, last updated in 1998, but, there were no historical resources listed for this site in accordance with, the state's, historical resources. So, I mean, if at the time they were doing the survey, if there had been knowledge that there had been some kind of World War II camp at that location, they would have pinpointed that at that time. There was never any, listed.
Was there any question?
Yeah, Benjamin, I think you just had objections.
Mr. Stubbs, in terms of protected species, I think Mr. Gamsby raised an issue about that.
Yes, sir. So again, with protected species, that's something that does again deal with the development phase. So once, if the land use and zoning is approved, and say they wanted to go in there and build some apartments, at that time, before they do any engineering, when they're doing the surveying, they would go in and have an environmentalist, like Mr. Dennis Price, or somebody who is qualified under state law to do an environmental assessment. And that environmental assessment will look at any endangered species or any other species that would be listed under Florida as protected or otherwise should be included within that environmental report. And that report also includes wetlands and other environmental features as well.
Mr. Stubbs, for the council's information, if protected species are discovered, what do you usually end up doing?
If protected species are found, it's actually very expensive. You have to file an application through FWC to have them relocated, and it's very, very expensive to have. Like if they go for tourists, I think it's almost $5,000 for tourists to have them relocated. So if there are species that are endangered or on the state's list that are protected, then if development was to pursue, they would have to be responsible for coordinating and permitting through FWC to have those species relocated and pay the fines and relocating fees.
And the developer does that for the state? Town is not involved?
Correct.
Council, if you had any additional questions or concerns for Mr. Stubbs before we take any items up, now would be an appropriate time to ask.
Thank you, Kizzy.
Would matter.
All right, I close the public hearing, open the meeting back up.
And so, again, procedurally, now the public hearing is closed. There's 4 items for consideration. Ordinarily, the resolutions would be adopted by the Planning and Zoning Board. Because you're sitting in the capacity of the local planning agency, you would adopt the resolutions. The first resolution is PZLPA CPA 2023-01. It's a comprehensive plan amendment, which allows for the comprehensive plan to be amended to reflect the updated zoning. Comp plan amendments, this will be referred over to Tallahassee for Department. This one's not. You also would adopt an ordinance that would implement the recommendation of the resolution to update the comp plan. Then there's the resolution number PZLPAZ 2023-01. This is the actual rezoning resolution. And then the final first reading ordinance 2308 would be to implement the rezoning. Now these are first readings. Second readings would occur at the next town council meeting. So in terms of receiving additional input on all of this, you would have another meeting to have it heard. Your other alternative, as we discussed earlier, would be to table this to a date certain. If you wanted to table it until the next meeting, you certainly could. That would preserve the notices that Mr. Stubbs has had published and would allow for a month for you to have any community workshops you might want. So with that said, under the first public hearing, the first item is resolution number PZLPA CPA 2023-01. a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of White Springs, Florida, serving as the Planning and Zoning Board of the Town of White Springs, Florida, and a local planning agency of the Town of White Springs, Florida, recommending to the Town Council of the Town of White Springs, Florida, approval of an amendment to 100 or less, to an amendment of 100 or less acres to the future land use map of the Town of White Springs comprehensive plan pursuant to an application by the property owner under the procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3248 Florida statutes as amended, providing for amending the land use classification from agriculture to residential, high density of certain lands within the Town of White Springs, Florida, repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. So if the council wishes to take action on that resolution, Madam Mayor.
Now you're saying if we table this, we need to do it within the next council meeting?
You need to table it to a date certain. In order to preserve the notice, you need to say specifically when it's going to be brought back up.
That's something we're gonna have to discuss because it's further down in the thing that I was gonna bring up about the new town council members. I feel like they need a workshop on their duties, you know?
Okay.
Then we'll do the workshop for the city.
So I would say, and you might have had Mr. Stubbs comment on this, and so we'll be the one that has to travel back up. If there's an inclination to table one, you would probably be inclined to table them all. Is that safe to say? And then the question would be, do you want Mr. Stubbs to finish his presentations this evening, or would you like him to take care of those and continue?
I'd like for him to do it with the citizens at a workshop.
So a workshop between now and the meeting, and then do a formal presentation like the one you just gave. You wanted to have that next.
I don't know that we can come up with a date between now and the next council meeting, but that's only like, well, it's a month, but.
And you want a
You're going
workshop?
on vacation? Absolutely, going out of the country.
I'll leave the country next week. But again, if it's a town workshop, and if we have any members seated, you know, I guess you'd like to attend.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want everybody to attend. Of course. I'm trying to make out a calendar.
The only thing that's causing me any heartburn, and again, whether you vote up or down, doesn't cause me any heartburn, is the age of the application. And that's where we started running into a situation where we're prejudicing the applicant by not giving them a hearing. We have started the process now, which is positive, and I don't want to prejudice them any further. But if you, again, as long as you table to a date certain the items that are on the agenda, I think we'll be okay.
And I understand what you're saying in regards to the age of the application, I do, but we do owe an obligation to our citizens, and that's the bottom line. They need to assist in making an informed decision, because this is their town too. So, you know, we have a developer coming in who probably, he doesn't live here. He doesn't realize and understand what White Springs mean to the citizen as well as us. So I hate that he's had a prolonged application process, but we have to do what we have to do in regards to making sure our citizens are okay too.
Now, normally, like, you saying the application process, I understand that, but since I've been on the council, I've never had a resolution brought to me already prepared before the discussion on what the resolution was gonna be on.
But again, in land use and zoning, they're very, very standard. And so they are typically done exactly this way. This is, I just want to reassure you, this is exactly how this stuff is typically done, right? Everything's already prepared. They know what they've asked for, so they prepared a resolution that grants what they've asked for. You can always say no, right? But in terms of the way the resolutions look and read, they're very standardized. So again, I understand the council's reservations about making the big decision, but I do want to assure you, I've reviewed what's been presented, and the only procedural defect we have is we don't have a planner, and we don't have a planning and zoning board, but everything else you're actually.
We have a board.
They're not, I'm gonna say we don't, because they're not meeting. So we had, at some point, you start having an obligation, the applicant give them an answer, it's actually under chapter 163. We don't want to run afoul of that. So we've kind of corrected path on that, but we will need to move as quickly as possible to get the line. So if there does
So
need to
what
be a
dates
workshop,
are looking good, sir? I'll rest the council.
I actually looking truthfully to get through the summer and everyone's vacation and give our new council members the opportunity to get their feet wet, get their
And
class.
and to go through this, they need, I don't know how you explain all this to somebody else.
I would say, truthfully.
Cause we got budget coming up too. Budget is, that's really
And
budget.
we can do, workshops for our citizens in August.
You also gonna be doing,
When does our workshop start in August? Cause that's gonna be.
that's what we gotta come up with dates for August and
But
September.
it should like the third or fourth week at least in August. And that's September is out.
We got to look at the,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, along with too long, we need to make a day certain.
I know the end of August, definitely too close to September.
What about,
So early August, maybe.
These people know that we building down south, so I will be on travel.
Joel, what days are we?
I'll work. Just whatever you guys wanna do. Again, I'm here in August and September. I really prefer,
September's not gonna work at all, cause that's all.
but I
budget.
prefer to do it as soon as you can fit it in. Cause again, the pending application continues for date certain. Doesn't mean you can just do forever out. I really would need for any further conflict.
But I hate to be rushed because I need time to look at this.
No, I understand.
I really do.
But again, if it pleases the council, I mean, I do want you to understand, it's literally as simple as what I said. There's a menu of permitted and prohibited uses, and they're, all rezoning does is change that menu. It doesn't actually grant them the right to build anything. Right? It just changes the menu of things they can ask for. And so,
I understand that.
it is a big decision.
It's a
So
very
I'm not
big
done
decision.
with minutes, but,
And I don't wanna be rushed into it,
Right.
so.
So it's before the meeting or after? I mean, not after. Can't wait.
Maybe after.
Well, the weekend, because it's on the eighth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it a 15.
Okay, I'm good. I just need to know enough time because I just feel that we're building down south.
August 15th.
You already said no for July.
We're looking at the dates, August 15th.
I'm doing about the That's something I can work with.
now, the other thing that you can do, if you're convening a workshop, you can call a special meeting for right after that. You can call a special meeting for the next week. It doesn't have to be a regular council.
Right.
So if you are looking at August 15th, as a, maybe have the workshop start at 6, and then grind through it, and then have the special meeting called to immediately follow thereafter. Because none of this material will change. That's the other thing, because it's being continued, none of this material changes. So that gives you, a solid 2 months to get familiar with it. Go through the workshop so the citizens can understand it better, and then you can vote that evening. And kill 2 birds with one stone.
So we'll put that on one workshop for the citizens?
Yeah.
August 15th will come up, we'll do that workshop, August 15th.
Sounds good.
What time?
We're gonna be
6
6.
o'clock.
And if you do the special meeting, are we talking about an hour away or?
We could actually.
Just, what you do is you notice it for 6:05 PM,
Okay.
and then the agenda says to immediately thereafter. So if the workshop lasts 2 hours, it lasts 2 hours, but we take up the special meeting agenda immediately after the workshop, and that'll be fine. Madam Mayor, if that's what the pleasure of the council is, I'd ask for a motion to table for a date certain items 5, actually all of the items. in item
Items under 5. All right, so can I get a motion to table, all of item 5 until August 15th?
I just want to move that we table all the item 5 on the current agenda and moving it to August the 15th, 2023, 6 p.m.
Can I get a second on the motion?
I second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So procedurally, let me understand, does that then mean that would be the first reading and the first vote, and then then you schedule yet
Special
another?
meeting after the workshop.
Right, for the first reading and first vote, and there has to be a second.
There has to be a second reading to adopt an ordinance. The resolutions would get adopted at the special meeting, the ordinance would have first reading at the special meeting. So whether second reading would be the September meeting or not, you could decide that, probably.
You got one today.
Oh, Mr. Tommy, I'm sorry.
So between this time, are they gonna kind of give everybody in town an idea what they're planning on putting on these properties or no?
Evidently, they're not gonna tell you what's gonna go on the property, because I've heard what's supposed to go there, but nobody wants to
I
admit
got
it.
you, that's what I thought.
You know, and so that's the problem I have personally, I can tell you
Exactly.
that I live in that neighborhood. So,
Well,
you know, it's a personal thing for me.
If I may, so it's not typical to talk about, you know, specific site plans during the planning and zoning process, but at the workshop, now that Mr. Stubbs has heard what the concerns of the community are, he can go back and talk to his client. Maybe his client wants to come to the workshop, maybe they don't.
I got it.
But that might be the way to resolve some concerns.
Absolutely. Mr. Gamsby?
For my own edification, if something is approved as being zoned for high density, so let's say apartment buildings, and they come forward with a proposal to build apartment buildings, is this council's hands now handcuffed to rejecting that because it's too much people coming in or it's too dense?
No, they're not handcuffed at all. There are requirements under the land development regulations for site improvement, for site development approval, for development orders. One of those is concurrency, right? So if they came in and said hypothetically, I want to build these apartments and it's gonna, 37,000 gallons a day, and Ray comes forward and says, our plant can't do that, right? We literally cannot service then it fails concurrency, and the council would say, we're not going to allow that.
But what about just flat, you don't want apartment buildings? Is this now off the table as being a reason to reject?
That's a question I have, like.
So I do, yeah, you generally want substantial competent evidence one way or the other. It's one of the reasons we swear you in when you get public hearings. Your testimony becomes evidence, right? That's why we had you swear in. You generally just need some evidentiary basis. And as a legislative body, the council is generally going to be deferred to by a court. Is it possible to deny a zoning or a land use development plan and be sued for it? Yes, 100% it's possible. That's why it's important that we follow the process. So chapter 163 tells us how to do this. That's what we're doing. And you know, the same process that we tried to follow this evening will now be followed on the 15th of August. So, you know, again, I would get these and read. It sounds like you have read them, which I think is really great.
I read them all.
Yeah, and so maybe come to the workshop on the evening of the 15th, see if you can get additional questions asked. And then there'll be another public hearing and you can express your approval or disapproval.
And I'll save my laundry list of questions.
Okay. And I would also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but this is why investing in a planner will, because that planner can break this stuff down. And literally, once you have a planner you trust, you look down to the end of the table, say, does everything look like it's in order here? And that person nods, and you feel much better. So we lack that because we're a small town.
Yeah, we reached out to, I also reached out to some planners, so I'm just waiting to see what they're gonna say, and so I can bring a proposal to the council to how much also.
I don't want to diminish it, but this is relatively light in terms of material, correct, Mr. Stubbs?
We just moved on.
We've had thousands. So, you know, it is a lot, and you need an expert, you need a professional who digest it for you, so this is a good lesson, but that's somebody who can see that.
All right, we had discussion, can I get a vote on approving the table?
I don't think about it.
You know, we didn't know. All in favor of tabling item 5, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Mayor, would you like to go home, Mr. Stubbs? You'll stay, okay.
So, can I get approval of the minutes for the May 9th, 2023 organizational meeting and regular council meeting?
I definitely approve the minutes from May 9th, 2023 organizational meeting and regular town council meeting.
Can I get a second?
I'm Mary Berry, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right. Old business, elections. So it was brought up at the last council meeting that the elections was closed out too early. I read the charter. My understanding as it reads, the petition shall be filed no later than on the third Tuesday in March of the calendar year in which the election will be held unless otherwise prohibited, provided by law. So it does not say that it could not end before this time of day, only that it couldn't be later than. Now, Mr. Foreman, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Can I add something before?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman, if you look at it right before, after, the proclamation, I was looking at it also, and I see how it got interpreted, because it does say it's no later than. And we got the, notice from April 2015, you'll see that as well. And it says that qualifying ends at noon, March 10th, which was the second, Tuesday. That's when qualifying ends. And that is the, template that was used when this one was presented. The qualifying ended on March, so once you qualified, she allowed those who qualified to continue to bring their stuff in by that Tuesday, that third Tuesday. Well, how our election went, you qualified as well by that second week. We just ended it. She just ended it, but we only had 2 people that even, put in anything to qualify, and 1 was thrown out. So I don't see how this is a stipulation, as I say, this is for you, Mr. Joel, still, Mr. Foreman, because it don't look like the charter was violated, because it does not say, it says no later than. And the way I interpret it, come to my house no later than 4 o'clock. If you come at 12, it's not a problem. Just don't come later than. I think it's all based on interpretation, and I don't think we violated anything by that, but of course, this is your expertise.
Yeah, so the language no later than means that's the deadline, right? And so if we create the impression with potential candidates that the deadline's any sooner than the deadline provided by charter, then we're vulnerable to an attack, right? Somebody can come in and say, hey, I wanted to file by that Tuesday in March. When I did, I was told, or I saw the calendar said that it had to be the Friday before that, whatever the case may be. Textually, and the way it's drafted, if we stopped anybody from filing their petition, anytime before that, third Tuesday in March, if that's problematic. Now, I don't know if we did actually stop anybody from filing a petition. I don't know if we rejected a petition. Yeah. Did anybody try to file it?
Anybody ask you on Monday? Or
So, what you have at law is a concept called harmless error. And what that means is, yes, you made a mistake and you messed up, but nobody was prejudiced or harmed by it. And we didn't receive any complaints that I'm aware of. I think people after the fact, after everything was over with, expressed concern that the charter may not have been followed to the letter. But again, you need an agreed party. And again, I know there's folks complaining, don't get me wrong, but in terms of an agreed party, somebody was actually denied the opportunity to run and be a candidate, I've not heard that yet. That may still come forward, and if that does come forward, then yes, this is problematic. But as of right now,
okay, so if
it's a solution, not really having a problem. Yeah, so when you look at the election notice, it says.
2015, I'm gonna get that hers to see what hers.
Qualifying ended.
Well, the third, it started April 21st and ended.
March 10th.
How is it?
I asked asked you this.
That's backwards. It says county election. Oh, that's the date. Okay. So qualifying ends March 10th of that year. And it says qualifying ended at noon on March 10th. March 10th was the second Tuesday in 2015.
Right.
So from my experience with the Ethics Commission, once a precedent has been set, pretty much everything else goes away. I mean, I've just seen it so many times in being an employee here and then coming to council meetings prior to me being on town council. I've seen it many times.
And look, if we do have demonstrable history of qualifying people early, and again, we've not received a complaint. Nobody's threatened to sue, nobody's threatened to challenge any candidacy, nobody's threatened to have anybody removed. You know, I understand complaints have been expressed, but in terms of obligating the council to act, you know, you guys made appointments, what, last meeting, right? And those haven't been challenged, so, you know, I think you're, moving forward, business as usual, and if things get elevated, then we'll deal with it. But right now.
And my thing, it wasn't brought up until the council member was actually removed from office. They were a member of the town council when this election
Understood.
went on.
Understood.
So that's another concern. Well, not a concern, but just something else to throw out here. But anyway, because of 2015, I feel like Pam closed it on the second Tuesday. We had the same charter in 2015 as we do now.
And I had to have a template to go by. I was hired on the 12th, 2021, did not know anything about an election of the general process. So I looked for something that was done prior to me being here. This was the only thing, there was nothing else in the files. This was an old thing that Cynethia actually found, and this is what I went by. So this is why I was like, it was nothing intentional to try to hurry up and close the election
But the whole thing
process.
is,
So,
before that third Tuesday, nobody came to you by noon
None.
and said,
none,
can I still file my application?
exactly.
So. I feel like-
And that's my point, in harmless error, like, even if you grant that it's an error,
Right.
Yes.
is there an aggrieved party, was anybody adversely affected, did anything change, was anything handled differently? We don't know that, right? We don't have any information there.
I just want to ask, so, Mr. Foreman, just to be clear, what do you suggest the council do?
Right now, I think 2 people were appointed at the last meeting. I think they're gonna be sworn in a few minutes, and you'll proceed accordingly. You know, if the matter, let's put it this way, if the matter were escalated to the point that curative action was necessary, you would call a special election. But you still have to, you know, you have to do the town's business. And, you know, the election notice that was sent out to everybody, the exact same election rules. There was time before that closing date to object and say, no, it needs to be by 2. Again, we didn't hear any of that. So everybody operated on the same rules. There's no evidence that everybody didn't operate on the same rules. And so it's an error, but a harmless error situation. And my advice to the council would be to proceed.
Thank you. So now we will have the swearing in of the new town council members, Ms. Lenny Hope and Kizzy Burch. If you'll come forward.
You'll stand, yes, and you'll face the audience, your constituency. On behalf of the town of White Springs, thank you so much for your willingness to serve your town and your community. When I ask for your name, you both will tell us your name. Repeat after me. I, and your name.
I, Kizzy Burch. I, Minute Pope.
Now, you do the same thing here together. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the laws of the state of Florida,
the laws of the state of Florida,
and all ordinances.
and all ordinances.
I am duly qualified
I am duly qualified
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform
perform
and discharge
and discharge
the duties
the duties
of the office
of the office
of Town Council,
of Town Council,
White Springs, Florida,
White Springs, Florida,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
on which now
in which now
I am about to enter.
I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome aboard, ladies. Put your seats here, and I'll get with you later on what you need to do. Kizzy, you'll be here, Lenny, you'll be on the side of her. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies.
Minute.
Y'all ready? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. All right, new business, there's a Juneteenth celebration at the Stephen Foster on Saturday, June the 17th, from 10 to 2 or 4?
I think it's 2.
It starts at,
But the program is later.
ends at 4. Yeah, it
Four.
ends at 4, 10 to 4, Saturday in the park, Stephen Foster. And they've asked that the town do a proclamation for this celebration. And you want to do?
Yes.
You should always.
You have to update it. And it is posted on our website, and we have it here if anybody wants to read it.
I'll let you read it.
Oh.
Joel's gonna read it.
Proclamation of the town of White Springs on June 19th, 1865, nearly 9 decades after our nation's founding and more than 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, the enslaved Americans in Galveston, Texas finally received word that they were free from bondage. As those who were formerly enslaved were recognized for the first time as citizens, Black Americans came to commemorate Juneteenth with celebrations across the country, building new lives and a new tradition that we honor today. In its celebration of freedom, Juneteenth is a day that should be recognized by all Americans. I am proud that Juneteenth has been consecrated as our newest national holiday. Juneteenth is a day of profound weight and power. A day in which we remember the moral stain and terrible toll of slavery in our country, what I've long called America's original sin. A long legacy of systemic racism, inequality, and inhumanity. But it is a day that also reminds us of our incredible capacity to heal, hope, and emerge from our darkest moments with purpose and resolve. On Juneteenth, we recommit ourselves to the work of equity, equality, and justice. We celebrate the centuries of struggle, courage, and hope that have brought us to this time of progress and possibility. That work has been led throughout our history by educators, advocates, and lawyers, courageous activists, public officials, and all communities throughout this great country. Psalm 30 proclaims that, quote, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning, close quote. Juneteenth marks both the long, hard night of slavery and discrimination and the promise of a brighter morning to come. Together, we will lay the roots of real and lasting justice so that we can become the extraordinary country, state, town, city, and neighborhood that was promised to all Americans. Now therefore I, Anita Rivers, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the town of White Springs, Florida, do hereby proclaim Saturday, June 17th, 2023, Juneteenth Celebration Day at the Stephen Foster Culture Center State Park. Signed June 13th, 2023.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the council to approve? To approve the proclamation for the Juneteenth celebration at the Stephen Foster Park.
I, Jacqueline, we approve the proclamation for Juneteenth celebration at Stephen Foster as written.
Can I get a second on the motion?
I keep the voice of the motion.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. So that is done. Let's see. Now we will do our departmental and administrative comments. Any comments from the public before we go into our department?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Dennis Price, 16548 Spring Street in White Springs. Penny Hutchison, well, I guess 15 years ago, personally put in a sewer line on Hamilton Street. And since then, there was a lot of stick-ups, where people could look in. I'm looked into it, I think Kinetic always looked into it. But one of the stick-ups, the top is broken off, so it's open down into the sewer. A lot of the other stick-ups are not, you can't find them. So, I know he went to a lot of trouble putting that in. He did it all himself. And I'm not sure if when they were doing all the sewer work in the city, I never saw them on that backyard. And I'm not sure if the city has it mapped or if there was a report done on it. But I do know that one of those stick-ups at the end of my property has a busted cap on it. And it's open.
Rand, can you hear him?
No, I don't think he can hear us. He couldn't hear.
So is it backing up, Dennis? Or
Pardon?
is it backing up or what? At your, you talking about your residence?
Yeah, behind my residence, but at the end, on the park end of my property.
What's the problem? Is he?
Oh, the stick-up for the sewer is busted.
Did you hear?
Are you talking about along Hamilton Avenue there?
Yeah, well, I just got hearing aids in.
You got yours on, but he won't wear it.
Yeah, you need to speak up, because he can't hear you.
How about I just give you the bar?
Well, Ray, he's saying that the stick-ups on the sewer line at Hamilton, the top's broken off
Right,
one of
the
them, so
top,
it's a.
Right,
Yeah, that 4-inch line, that's what I thought you were talking
right,
about.
and I don't know if any of the other ones, because they've disappeared over the years, people have driven on them, sort of smashed them in.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with during the rehab. That was something that they put in.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
okay, yeah, I just would like to make sure that
It just needs caps put on.
my sewer line is gonna be, maintained its integrity. Because I know when I put mine in, Kenny had to come out there and dig down and find it because it had already collapsed, down there those days.
Yeah, there's 3 of them right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got them on mine.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, my recurring theme of the, old city hall, the old
We're not
jail.
selling property yet.
Well,
We're not selling property.
it's like every other house on my street behind me, nobody is taking care of any of it, and it's falling apart, including that. And it's an asset for the city, and it's just kind of.
Y'all gonna cut the grass at the old town hall?
The old town hall?
I cut it.
Y'all taking care of?
Yeah.
I
Y'all cut the
did,
grass?
I'll check it.
I did cut it once this spring, but the jambs on the doors are starting to rot, the windows jams, it's just kind of deteriorating.
It might be being in use soon though, from what I've heard, I don't know.
Well, it needs
By
some-
the town.
It needs some TLC, and I still would like to have the opportunity to buy it, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, any more public comments? We'll move on to the departments, town manager.
Okay, so, well, I've noticed some big deposits in our account and I didn't understand where it came from, so I got with the accountant and we did a little bit of research. It turns out that Duke deposited, they got an outside firm and they deposited 2 amounts in our account which were incorrect. So we have a check here that I need authorization to reimburse Duke for what they paid us. Y'all don't wanna hear it, but
Yeah, I don't know it.
yeah, it's almost for $500,000.
That's
Yeah. So, I need authorization to pay Duke back their money. Yeah, 498. Yeah. Yeah. $1 some change shy of that. So I need authorization to reimburse due. Also, the air went out at town hall, well, it was leaking, water all over the floor. The guy came out, he did a little quick fix, he gave us a quote, but I told him that, until it died, we're gonna try to keep patching it up, because the quote is $8,300. That's the quote that Donnie Skipper gave us for town hall. So next time y'all come, if it's hot, that's because it died. Now, you said what? Okay, now, spoke to Michael, I do have the reimbursements for the, staff. And I have to get authorization because of the amounts, and I know,
Can we
Vice
go
Mayor
ahead
Williams.
Can we go ahead and take care of Duke?
Oh, go ahead.
All right, can I get a motion to pay Duke Energy back their funds of almost $498,000?
Jacqueline, when we pay, reimburse Duke Energy $498,000.
Can I get a second?
Mary Berry, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now go on.
Okay, sorry, you know I like to move. Okay, so, Vice Mayor Williams wanted to know the amounts of the reimbursement. Now, what the accountant told us that it was, included in the budget, but not these payouts, it's included in the current budget. So these are the payouts, I'm gonna start low for the approval. Okay, he has to take out, 21%, so for Ms. Ruise, her payback reimbursement was $3,576.50, so her total reimbursement will be, after the, 21% that they had to take out for taxes, is $2,516.06. Ms. Williams, hers was $4,252.50, and her reimbursement is $2,991.63. Ray is fine. Curtis, he's been employed the longest, so his is the biggest. His was $10,804.54, which will, after the 21%, is $7,600.99 that we owe them. Well, we owe them because, you know, it wasn't paid to them when it was paid to some. Ray is good.
But you don't need a motion on that because we
No,
already
you
done.
No, Vice Mayor Williams wanted to know what
Oh, you
it
just wanted the
was.
amount.
She wanted the amounts before we approved. And then one of them was 10, so that's why I had to get approval for his check. Okay. That was that. So, we finally got some financials, but these are for April. That's the earliest, the latest that you can give. And if you turn to your financial statement behind your manager section, we should, as of April, we should have been 58%. Now, these numbers are not accurate because I do have numbers from the May Day event. And I know we were over budget. But anyway, let me go over the finances. At Lawye, we received 95.5%. Franchise fees. I am on, you should be in your managers, behind your manager's information. Where it says, Jackie got green, yeah. Green. Okay, let's see. Go back the other way. It should be right after your proclamation. Yeah. This, after the election stuff, where it says from the manager's desk?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, the first thing after the manager's desk.
It says profit and loss budget.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get y'all color coded sheets so y'all can find this stuff. Okay. Charge for services, 54.5%, franchise fee, 9.3%, license permit, this is pretty lengthy, do y'all need me to still go?
I don't know, you know?
Okay,
No, that's like 30.
yeah. Well, you can look at it at your own leisure, but he finally gave us, you know, the financials that we've been asking for. So, also included in this, you'll see, you should have some tabs now. We'll have to do payroll and reimbursement. I have to, move funds from, general to enterprise. I'm reimbursing general funds from the enterprise for the payroll. This is for March, $10,972.47. I also have to move, and it's for a reimbursement. And let me just explain to those who are not familiar with the reimbursement. Everybody get paid out of one account, but their duties may be with sanitation, water, so a percentage of their salary is coming from sanitation, like Ms. Cynethia is utilities clerk, but she don't get paid with that red check, which is general account, so we have to reimburse. They have to reimburse her. Excuse me, not her, the account. Enterprise has to reimburse general $8,900, $906.07 for the month of May payroll. That's the next one. And also $8,946.73 for May 26 payroll. When you get to your red tab, you will see your selections. These are what we paid out this month. Your AP selection, when you get to your red tab, you just pass it. You just pass it. We're gonna have to order some more. Hey, we had to work with what we had. Y'all see the red tab? Okay. So, June 7th, out of the general account, we pay $8,639.16. Enterprise, the way he does his things is always a negative because we had already paid ring power, but when he adds it up, it's a negative, but of course, it's not a negative number that we're paying out. You can see the expenses. 31st, out of the general account, $11,724.48. Enterprise, it's always a negative because that's how he does his accounting. General for May 24th, so pretty much we're paying bills every week.
Right.
$6,437.11. That's out the general account. The enterprise. Oh, he always, I hate how he does it. The total is $1,810.97. 92. May 17th, $5,191.79. Enterprise, he's taking out what we've already paid, that's why he has a negative number there. May 10th, out of enterprise, we paid a total of $4,253.94. Enterprise, $7,057.77. That's what we paid out since the last council meeting.
And these are our bank accounts?
Our bank accounts, ARPA funds, we have 341, y'all know I have trouble reading numbers, $1,854.
$54.
Yeah, I'm reading that wrong.
No, ma'am.
341, read it.
$341,854.
That's what I said. Okay.
No, you didn't.
The ARPA, we have the 41,800 in there. That's what we're gonna use for our sewer renovation that we had to put on the side. I still haven't found out what this CDBG revitalization money is. It's just a little over 2,500. Customer deposits, $83,196.
$100.96.
Okay, 96 cents. 96 cents. enterprise, $57,440.02.
Thank you.
General account, $1,114,863.47. Now, out of that account, we have to take out the five.
Yes.
Right. Okay, the water loan repayment, that's the one we take the $9,000 out every month out of the enterprise account to set it up to pay back those loans that the town has. $31,908.68, and there's your total, $1,632,710.46. And then you have your bank statements. For the month of May.
Alright. Is that all of your report? Is that all of your report?
Yes, mine was just financial.
Alright, so fire department's not here.
Yes, it is.
Ma'am.
Who?
You see Trent back there?
Where?
Yeah,
Oh,
I see Trent.
I can't see it. Trent, you got a report for us?
All good.
Okay. May I reiterate what did we mention about the $8,300 for Donnie Skipper? Was that something we needed to?
That's the, no, we didn't.
No,
Just
we're not
let you guys know,
yet.
just,
It was
that
just
was
a
an
quote.
estimate.
But I just want to get them prepared, because we may have to put that in the budget when we start budgeting.
And the same thing with the reimbursement checks, it was just information.
She asked for that, y'all.
She just asked.
That's what I asked for.
Gotcha, okay.
So Trent, everything good?
Everything's great.
Alrighty. Ray Vaughn.
Yep.
I'm tired of y'all paying up my Wi-Fi. You and the Windstream guys.
Me too.
I want to start charging Windstream, because they bust a pipe like every
They
week.
must order that inside out.
They always go, though.
Yeah.
God bless them.
And you get some fiber optics and fix it.
Yeah, but we got to come, because you gotta call everybody back after work hours when you go fix the water line.
And Mary is the only person with a house phone.
That's right, y'all gonna have faster internet, this Mary gonna have a house phone with a
Oh,
dollar faster.
I can't, she was the only person in my house phone, but I got a cell phone, but I still got, I use my house phone, I use my house phone.
So, DEP, they came out yesterday for their 3S station. They couldn't believe it. The best looking plant.
Oh my God,
They
you shaking your head.
They
Oh, I
took a
heard
gallon of
that.
water with them.
Yes.
They said that's the best tasting water they ever tasted.
Wow.
No, but they did come out yesterday. They didn't find, only thing they found was about a week ago, the diaphragm in one of the fire hydrants busted out there at the water plant. So, the the fire hydrant gotta be replaced. It's about 5 or 6 gallons a minute going through. About probably 5 to 6 gallons a minute coming from the fire hydrant.
That's a lot.
So I've got 2 quotes on replaced fire hydrant costs. That diaphragm, it can't be replaced.
Just a quote.
The guard. So if you look, the last 2 pages, that's the 2 quotes I have.
Oh, we, both of them?
What's that?
No, one or the other or each? You gotta have both?
No, that's just one fire hydrant. But these are 2 different separate quotes. So, which is one of the.
Oh, one is with
Yeah,
jails and one is with
replace
Florida Field. What's the difference, right? Why is it $2,000 more?
What's the difference?
Why is one so much more?
To estimate.
That's just the way it is. That's how I'm saving y'all money.
That's true.
That's what I do.
All right, Ray.
It's about $2,000 difference.
Yes, we know where we're going. Yeah.
So when they built that plant, though, they didn't put a valve in, so I could block in that fire hydrant. So this quote, it includes, they're gonna put a valve in, so if this ever happens again, I can block that fire hydrant in, because right now, the only way to block that fire hydrant in is to drain that elevated tank, which is 120,000 gallons of water. But I'm also due for a washout on that elevator tank. So I'm gonna do both of them together. I'm gonna do the washout and replace the fire hydrant, hopefully. And that'll save 120,000 gallons of treated water just going on the ground twice. So I've got it scheduled, they're supposed to come out next Wednesday to do the washout. So I would like to replace that hydrant then, instead of draining that elevator tank twice.
So I got a question, they are $2,000 difference, but like this one has more explanation on it, are they doing more than the other one, or are they doing the exact same
This
thing?
thing, this is
Okay.
a hydrant, it's all in 6-inch valve.
Okay.
Same.
All right, so I vote, I mean, it was my recommendation, I said it's cheaper one. I have to have a motion on the council of which one.
I recommend move that we go with Dale's evacuation for the amount of $6,955 for the replacement of the fire hydrant.
Can I get a second?
I'm Mary Berry, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Anything else, Ray?
What's that?
Anything else?
That's just, that's all they really had. Really, they did say though, the plant on good, they really didn't find anything.
Okay.
Everything was clean and
That's good. All right, does the council have anything they wanna say? Comments? Announcements?
I'd like to welcome Kizzy, Burch, and Betty Hope to the city council.
That is it. Meeting adjourned, 8:08 PM.